Right, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Web3 Native podcast by Longhash Ventures. Today, we're so excited to be welcoming a guest who is a pioneer from the Polkadot ecosystem, Ruitao from Acala and Karura. Hi, Ruitao.
Hi, Shi Khai. Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here today. Actually, this is the day that we launched the Crowdloan. It's coincidence that we just start this podcast as well, but a lot of stuff to share for the Longhash community.
Yeah, awesome. The timing could not be better. At the time of recording, we just had the announcement of the Crowdloans yesterday. And then just within 24 hours, I think we've seen crazy amounts, like tens of millions of worth of Kusama already locked in to the various Crowdloan campaigns. But we'll get a bit into that. But I think just for everyone to get a little bit of a glimpse, right? How much is, currently locked in dollar value or Kusama terms?
I think we started Crowdloan about 8 hours ago. Currently has over $15 million locked in our Crowdloan. The Crowdloan actually going to run for 7 days, and the auction going to run for 7 days. We do not know what's the number going to look like once we're close to the auction. But still, we can see contribution coming up every minute. Very excited, a new way to bootstrap a network.
All right, exactly. So with that sneak peek to excite everyone, I think for the benefit of the audience, many of whom may be new to Polkadot, let's take a step back, right? What's this Crowdloan? What's this like tens of millions going in? What are they doing? And some of you may be even wondering, what is Polkadot? So let's go all the way to the beginning to talk about Polkadot itself as an infrastructure and ecosystem. Many people think of it like, oh yeah, sure, there are many different blockchains, Ethereum, Solana, Polygon even its own chain, and then there's Polkadot as its own chain. But actually, people in the ecosystem will always call it layer 0 and it as a blockchain by itself, whereas like the projects building on top are the blockchains. So would you like us to just walk through how would you explain Polkadot in a few sentences?
No problem. So first of all, Polkadot itself is a base layer. We call it layer 0 because it's like the meta protocol for developer like us to create blockchain on top of it. In a nutshell, Polkadot itself is a proof of stake relay chain, they call it, and can provide new possibilities for developer like us to create blockchain. It's actually quite easy for developer to come up with new blockchains. There's many frameworks, SDK out there. It's actually not that hard. The thing is that once a developer was looking to create its own network, you are running into a number of problems. One would be like, how do you ensure the network that you're trying to bootstrap is secure? Because you either have to have a proof of work algorithm and have enough miners, or you have to raise enough capital to do a proof of stake network. That has been a very big hurdle for developer to create new network. The other problem that you will run into, obviously, is the liquidity silo problem. So you created a new network, now what? It's disconnected from the wider crypto space. You have to either use the centralized exchange to move asset in and out. So in a nutshell, Polkadot solve these two problems for developers. We can tap into Polkadot as the shared security layer, so we can have the flexibility to design our own specialized network while maintaining the security provided by Polkadot. And also, Polkadot provide interoperability, so the network that we created is interconnected and can communicate with the wider crypto space.
Awesome. Yeah, so in that context then, the relay chain itself, as you mentioned, is basically there to provide security and help pass message along between the blockchains. And then the blockchains built on top are then what we call the parachains. And these are like the real stars of the blockchains. And I think, people might sometimes still get confused between like, okay, building a parachain versus building like a D app, right? Then what is the big difference? Maybe you'd like to summarize in a few sentences as well.
Yeah, so to put it this way, right? So Ethereum give us inspiration of like, hey, we can actually build unstoppable applications. Ethereum itself is a smart contract platform. Developer have the ability to build contract and deploy on Ethereum or on any smart contract platform. But developer does not have any flexibility outside the smart contract sandbox. So for example, if you want to create an application, if you want to create a dApp, and you would like to allow the end user to pay the gas fee in your own token, is actually quite hard to do on Ethereum. And in order to achieve that, you have to customize. You have to go one level deeper to customize the underlying blockchain layer. And that's why we think have the ability to create and customize blockchain. It's like one level deeper of customization that enables and opened for developer to tap into. So the difference between creating a specialized network versus creating an application is that how much customization you need, or how much new functionality you want to bring and think outside the smart contract sandbox. And essentially for us, we take this opportunity, we take this possibility, and we created a finance network that's fully specialized, fully customized for financial transactions.
Awesome. Yeah, exactly. There's so much more freedom and flexibility to build the whole network in the way that you want it to do, right? And as Gavin said, it's for like the specialized and sometimes the weird projects as well.
Yep.
So all that is super cool. Now, in order to then use or become a parachain, I think compared to the DApp as well, I think there's this idea of like DApps have to pay gas to deploy the smart contracts, and each time you use the smart contracts, interact with it, you have to pay gas as well. In this case, we can choose however we want to pay for or when we interact with the blockchains. But because we still need to rely on the relay chain for security, there still needs to be some sort of economic interaction between the parachains and the underlying relay chain, right? I guess that's why we get to the concept of crowdloans and the scarcity of parachains, and how do we decide who gets to become a parachain?
Yeah. So to put it in a nutshell, like a parachain is essentially what we call wholesale security. So for, let's say, take Ethereum example, right? Every time you interact with the dApp, you pay gas fee, you pay small fraction of ETH as gas fee. That's essentially the end user paying for the security of network, because without the gas fee, without the incentive for miner to maintain the network, you wouldn't have this sort of like censorship resistance. You wouldn't have this sort of like truly decentralized network. Same logic apply for parachain, but instead of allowing us, the end user, to pay per transaction, a parachain slot is essentially like a wholesale security that you can lease from the relay chain in either Kusama or Polkadot. And then how you decide to redistribute those wholesale securities actually up to the parachain project themselves. So this is like the different way of like paying for the security.
Yeah, how I would also explain it to some as well is that think of if we think of like the whole Polkadot ecosystem as a country, and then you want to parse out pieces of land or different states for people to perform economic activities on, then like the piece of land, either you can buy it for a fixed period of time, and therefore for that period you don't need to pay anything else, and that kind of is a parachain. And then there's a further kind of iteration for the para threads where pay as you go. So maybe you can kind of like rent rent a piece of a room or a land and kind of pay like a hotel or hostel, and you just pay for whatever you want to use.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So then in order to kind of get that wholesale security, now we come to the crowdloan mechanism finally. A few steps for everyone, please bear with us. So would you like to talk us through then what is the crowdloan and why is it necessary in order to decide on which parachains?
Yeah, definitely. So I think the background context here is that in the original design, Polkadot has limited slots, so it can support 100 parachains in this design. Definitely, there's a way to expand as we progress further, but in the initial iteration, is the current Polkadot implementation, there's a limited slot of 100 parachain slots. And in order to choose like how to distribute those 100 parachain slots, project need to bid for a slot. So to put it as simple as that, like if no one bids, even one project supply a tiny amount of bits, the project will be able to secure a parachain slot and start to transact on its own. But the thing is that there's the Polkadot or the Kusama ecosystem is a thriving ecosystem. There's actually quite a number of projects that would like to become a parachain and would like to deploy their specialized network. That's where the Crowdloan or the auction comes in, right? So how do you decide which project is eligible for a parachain slot? There's actually two ways for a project to participate in the auction. The very first way is very simple. The project itself, maybe through its own finance or through some support, gather enough Kusama or gather enough dots, and then they bid on the Parachain auction. That's similar to directly participating in the auction, or a project can ask support from the Kusama holders, from the dot holder, to contribute and help the project to secure a Parachain slots. And in that way, the project might reward something for the contribution, and that's what we call Crowdloan. So Crowdloan, in a nutshell, is that think it of as like a smart contract. You lock in the Kusama, you lock in the dots in the contract for a certain period of time, and then the project will use the proceed to bid for slots. If the bidding is successful, then the project starts to operate, economic is thriving, and then the contributor will get some rewards for helping that. And upon the end of lease periods, the Kusama or dot will be returned to the contributor. And this is very important. This is quite different from ICO. And if the project failed to bid, no big deal. The dot or Kusama will be then returned to the contributor as well. So you can think of the Crowdloan as like a no-loss form of participating a network bootstrap event.
Yeah, no loss form of participating. That's a great way to think about it. Another way, I guess, is a kind of a time-locked voting period,
Yes.
where I use my Kusama dot to vote for this project to win, but then I
Yes.
have to lock my vote for the period of time. Well, I guess we also just need to very quickly talk about Kusama as the kind of canary network, or the live testnet, or testnet with economic value of Polkadot. And I guess that kind of already covers it. Now, let's get to the actual for Acala and Karura, right? Would you like to give a quick overview of what Acala is building? You briefly mentioned, it's the whole financial ecosystem. So what are the components of Acala and Karura?
Yeah, so Acala itself is a specialized network fine-tuned for finance. So Acala itself has some core financial primitive built in on the chain level that users or programmers or anyone else can interact. So in a nutshell, Acala provides three core financial primitive. A stablecoin, a decentralized stablecoin that's essentially currently the de facto standard stablecoin within the Polkadot and Kusama ecosystem. There's also a decentralized DEX built in that user can choose to trade, for example, DOT to US dollar in a trustless way. And also there's a staking derivative product we call Liquid DOT, or on the Kusama we call Liquid KSM built in. And the reason they would choose to build all this protocol into the chain level, because they work with each other smoothly. So for example, if I have some dots, I can start to mint the Liquid DOT, so I'm holding my staking rewards, while I can use my Liquid DOT as capital to borrow against my dot position. And ultimately, this is what Acala on the chain level offers. And beyond that, Acala itself can also provides EVM capability, and in the future we might provide other smart contract capability, so developer can tap into what we built and start to reprogram the Lego pieces that we created on the chain level. So this is like Acala in a nutshell.
Awesome. Yeah, certainly I think the different financial products and how they all come together is really interesting. And of course, to tie it all together, we have the Acala token itself, right? Would you like to talk about how that kind of oils the whole economy of the DeFi network?
Yeah, definitely. So Acala token has multiple usage, right? So it's the governance token. So with the holders, with the Acala token holder, the network can choose to decide its core financial primitive parameters, such as like interest rate, such as like the DEX trading fee, or things like that. Acala token can be also used to elect council members, which essentially solve one of the problem like the low voting turnout rates on most other protocol that we see. So you can elect someone that you trust, and they will be participating in the governance process for you. Acala token itself is also a utility token that can be used as the native gas fee within the Acala network. Not that we require that, but it's ultimately the settlement gas fee within the network. It also has some of the staking capability. For example, if you want to create a multi-sig wallet, you might have to stake some Acala token. If you want to deploy a smart contract, you might have to stake some Acala token. So there's different way of utility to enable access to the network. And yeah, so this is like essentially the use case for the Acala token. Also, we have a very unique design for the Acala token. It has a deflationary model instead of like an inflationary model. And the reason that we're able to achieve that is that because Acala itself has a treasury built in, and we perceive as the network surplus comes in and as the network is thriving, as the network starts operating, the treasury can start to bound for future parachain auction. Then will not, the protocol itself no longer need to issue additional token. So we actually have a deflationary design with very limited circulating supply in the very first year. So those are some unique characteristics of the Acala token.
Yeah, I can already see the whole it all coming together in the kind of like a super app design, right? Not only is it utility, but also for governance and for gas. So it really kind of like all in one, and that's something that's not the case in Ethereum today or other kind of like blockchain ecosystems.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
I think there's the power of a specialized network, right? So
yeah.
I can recall someone say that I don't know who. Someone say that if you are really passionate about software, then you need to create your own hardware. We are using the same analogy here. Like if you are really passionate about protocol, you probably need to create your own blockchain. And this is like essentially what we do. We create our own parachain, and then we build those protocols into the chain level, and we build it really, really well.
Just curious, a little bit branching off here, because we talk about like using dots as like the staking, and then you release the liquidity and use that to generate a stable coin, and then using that for other kind of DeFi applications. What about using the Acala token itself to stake and unlock the liquidity and use that to generate stablecoin? Will it also be like a meta application in itself?
Yeah, those is something that we could definitely explore once the network is up and running and has some sort of stabilization. We can explore a lot of additional use cases for the token. For example, there could be like used to elect escalators, which is like validated within the Acala network. We might also consider using the native token as character as well. Not only accepting dot as character, the Acala token might be accepted as character as well, because like we are able to program all these moving parts in a way that can be coded into the chain level. So I'm quite confident that we can have a lot more exploration of how we play with the native token without actually sacrificing any sort of financial security on the protocol that we are working on.
It's a great advantage.
Yeah.
Now, of course, the sister to Acala is now Karura on Kusama.
Yeah.
And we know that basically it's a mirror image, and all the same features, all the same token utility is going to be on Kusama and Karura as well. So are there any kind of differences you'd like to highlight between Acala and Karura?
Yeah, definitely. But we can talk about how Acala and Karura's relationship by talking about the Polkadot and the Kusama's relationship, right? So Polkadot is the flagship protocol, right? And it's the bank grade security that serious trader is looking for. And Kusama is essentially serving as also a mainnet, but a slightly lower value one, where upgrades or new functionality may be rolled out on Kusama first before they process and ascend to Polkadot. And this sort of setup was, I would say that it's like something rare unique within the crypto space. I wouldn't call, but there's similar analogy we can use. It's not the same, but you can think about Kusama as a staging environment and then Polkadot as a production environment. Well, but staging environments, but still has value, so it's not 100% the same. But having a canary network to make sure feature is tested with real value is quite important, especially when you are securing financial applications. So we took the same analogy. So Acala is going to be the bank-grade security financial application suite deployed on Polkadot. We also have Karura, which is the I would say the more vibrant, more wild version of Acala deployed on Kusama. And for Acala, it's serving the Polkadot community. For Karura, it's serving the Kusama community. Upon genesis, they are going to be the same, but they might take different pathways, right? So let's say some governance proposal might not pass on Acala because it's like maybe too wild, the Karura network might feel a little bit adventurous and might be able to pass that. So, for example, adding new characters, so things like that. So I think you can think of the Karura network as like the lower value, wider, vibrant sister network of Acala.
Nice, kind of like the wild child of the family.
Yes, yes.
Yes, nice. So now then everybody is probably now thinking, right? So we've been building all these for quite a number of months or even years. We've launched a test net, you can actually use them. But now we are at the moment where we are just about to be able to use it live on as Parachains. And in that process, everyone who participates will be able to get some of the Karura tokens, and later on for Polkadot, the Acala tokens as well. So here's where the parachain kind of reward distribution mechanism kicks in. Would you like to share about how Karura plans to distribute?
Yeah, so the Karura token has let's put it simple. The Karura token has like a deflationary fixed supply, right? So we actually allocate the majority part of the Karura token for the community. So I think over 60% of the total supply is going to contribute back to the community in some way. So one major contribution is definitely going back as reward is going to reward for the parachain auction supporter, for the Crowdloan supporters. So in the very first year, we plan to distribute at least 10% of the supply to the auction supporters. And also, there's also, once the network is live, there's also liquidity mining events that will be taking place. But I think generally over the period of 2 years, the Karura network is willing to distribute about 50% of the total supply through all different sort of avenue, liquidity mining, Crowdloans, or things like that. So yeah, those is like the way to get exposure on Karura network. There's actually a number of ways that you can participate in getting exposure on the Karura network. Participate on Crowdloan is one way. There's also the Build Acala events. It's all up to different contributor to choose what's the best strategy for them to have some exposure on the Karura network.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that there are so many different ways that you can earn or like get Karura as long as you're providing value by either signaling your commitment, building on top of it, providing liquidity. There are so many different avenues to do so, right? I guess for today, our focus is of course going to be on the Crowdloan itself.
Yes.
I understand there is a certain kind of guaranteed conversion rate per Kusama that you put in, right? How did we actually come to this number, and how is it actually guaranteed?
Okay, so the thing is that we would like to distribute tokens. We would like to distribute a significant amount of token for the Crowdloan supporter, but we also need to keep some reserve in the next year's parachain auction, right? So the network need to keep some reserve because we have the deflationary token design. The network needs to keep some reserve. So in the very first year, we think around 80% of the total supply needs to be distributed to the community in some way. And when we say the number 18%, it's actually more than 15% of the circulating supply of the very first year. And within those 18%, we decided at least 10% should go to the Crowdloan supporter, and that's how we calculate the amount of token that can be distributed on the very first year. And when we started the Crowdloans, everyone can get in, and we set up an cap. This is actually not a target to hit. It's just to make sure that we can guarantee everyone get in the Crowdloan, get the bare minimum amount that we promised. And if we didn't actually hit the cap, you might get a slightly higher distribution of the KR token. That's even better. So those is like we guarantee the minimum amount by reserve some allocation and also setting a cap that's like reasonably high that everyone can have chance to participate. Is actually not a target to hit.
Yeah. So exactly. Actually, that's a little bit, I guess, potentially counterintuitive to people, right? Where like you say you're gonna get at least, was it 12?
Yeah, 12 KR
per KSM. But actually, that is assuming that 12 is assuming that, is it assuming the 1.5 million of KSM locked?
No, actually the 12 is around 850,000, so less than a million KSM locked. And if we did hit the cap, which is 1.5 5 million KSM locked, then we will distribute 20%. Those is like the reserve that we can utilize to supply to meet the minimum amount. So regardless, I think the cap is not a target to hit. We want to everyone to be able to contribute. We also the goal is to allow every Kusama holder to contribute some, but not all, some of their Kusama holdings, so they can get exposure to one of the solid project in the ecosystem and create a positive feedback. So think about the Crowdloan as something very different from the ICO. The ICO is that the project will raise the capital or raise the token for themselves, and they might liquidate those tokens, actually creating a negative effect on the base layer. But the Crowdloan is actually different. It's actually like those KSM stake does not belong to the project. It also does not belong to the, it's like removed from circulation, so creating demand for the base layer token, and in the same time supporting the solid project that's building in this ecosystem and creating like a win-win situation for both the base layer, in this case Kusama, and the project, which in this case Karura.
Awesome, awesome. So exactly as you said, right? If basically there is some sort of assumptions from the calculation that we got to for a 1 to 12 conversion, and if fewer KSM is staked, basically everybody gets more. Everybody gets more. But if it exceeds the target, we will also kind of expand the amount of tokens that will be distributed, so that everybody still gets rewarded for their commitment. And to keep in mind as well, like to really nail home the point, it's not an investment. Nobody is buying Karura, right? Like all you're doing is you're signaling your commitment by locking or staking your KSM, and in return, you are rewarded with a share of the network.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. So, what is the kind of thought process for going through a fixed percentage approach then, right? Because we see there are different approaches for this. Either we can fix like a certain number of tokens will be guaranteed, or we can guarantee a certain percentage of the network. I guess both of them, the end result is the same, right? We allow anyone to participate as much as they like. But what are some of the trade-offs that when you were considering between like fixing percentage, fixing the conversion, or maybe even like putting down a cap or no cap?
Well, I think have a reasonable fixed percentage to allow everyone to get in is a working or a good decision for our project, because we have a fixed amount of supply in our total token economic design. So we have to reserve a fixed amount of token for the Crowdloan supporters. And I think to look back on the topic of why did we reach the design of like why did we choose a fixed supply for our tokens? There's another reason, because like the Acala network also has a unique treasury design that once functionally should will be able to accrue in value and at some stage able to bound Parachain on its own. You can think about a building, and then the Acala is like the renter of the building, but it's operating business, and the business is thriving, and at some stage the business is able to buy the building and doesn't have to pay rent anymore. And because that's one source of the inflation that we have to distribute through Crowdloan or things like that, and if we do not have to pay for the rent anymore, then we can achieve this deflationary design.
Yeah, that is certainly like one consideration that is unique to, well, Kusama and Polkadot, right? Whereby you have to think about the kind of parachain auctions. It's not just like one-time ICO, and we have to think about it. So, what is the target then for Karura and Acala? You know, is it after basically you want to do only one time where you have to inflate, and basically by the time the next 48 weeks, the next parachain slot that you need to bid for comes around, you expect that the sovereign wealth fund is sufficient to bid for it yourself, and you do not plan to inflate at all? Or is it too far ahead to think about it?
We certainly hope that's the case, right? So there's actually two things. Like one point is that if the network is doing well, the network is thriving, then there should be enough operation surplus. The network's value should be confirmed and should actually have an increasing valuation. That's the one that goes up. And we also predicted that the parachain lease cost is actually going down because, well, technology gets better. Who knows how many new parachain slot might be released in the next version of Polkadot. So we predicted that if we do well, the network goes up and the parachain lease goes down. And we certainly hope that maybe within 1 year, Acala itself will reach to some form of like self-sufficient. That's what we hope for. But in case if we don't, the treasury or the on-chain treasury still holds enough token to conduct another crowd loan. And so there's like contingency plan for that as well.
Nice. Yeah. So we have different options, and I
Yes.
think the nice thing about the Kusama Polkadot is that because of the upgradable nature, you can always choose to inflate if you decide to do so. Right. There's
Yeah.
always an option, although it is not a desirable one.
Well, I don't think we will have to reach to an inflationary model. As I mentioned, right? If the project itself does not become self-sufficient in 1 year, the reserve slots still have enough token for the next parachain auction. And by then, and if we did reach self-sufficient, that's even better because like those reserve slots no longer need to be offered through Crowdloan anymore, and it can become reserved in the treasury and collectively held by all the other ACA holders.
Yeah, awesome. Well, talking about no inflation and fixed supply and so on, I'd like to just maybe point out one potential challenge, right, that I'm personally concerned about. I think we have seen some very overhyped projects. For example, some token launches like Fei Protocol, right? It was a Genesis event, and technically it was not really a sale, but because there was so much interest, it kind of like pushed up the valuation to some super crazy, all sorts of problems. And to a certain extent, the amount of interest we see on crowd loans could lead to something similar happening, in that if there's so much KSM or dot locked up, that kind of like hyperinflates, the token valuation of the earliest slots, or rather, and maybe we're overpaying for the first few kind of parachain slots, right, rather than compared to the rest. So, how do you think about this challenge? Is it a kind of like a trade-off that you are willing to make to be the first, or like the first five? And
Well, this is actually something very hard to predict, but I mean, we are the very first project auction. We are on the very first project auction. So in the design, I mentioned earlier, like the design distribution allocation was 10% to the crowd loan. And if we did exceed that, we actually think about that, hey, this is probably a little bit too much. So as I mentioned, if we reach to a certain point, there's actually no more appreciation from the network anymore. We were willing to distribute more token at the promised 12 KAR. And that's the promise. The network will only reach to certain valuation, not just like limitless contribution. It will reach to a reasonable valuation, we believe. I will also to say that this is like completely driven by the market. No one knows how to value a parachain yet. If you look at Uniswap, if you look at other protocol that's built on Ethereum, they was like 8%, they was like 10% of the base layer. But actually no one knows how to value a parachain yet because it's a different paradigm. So yeah, I think it's up to the market to decide. And we also take a consideration that if it reached to the crazy amounts, we're willing to distribute more to make sure there's like more fair distribution across everyone that's participating.
Yeah, that is quite prudent. So basically, once if there's too much interest, you kind of try to cap the valuation in a way
Yes.
by
Yes.
distributing more tokens so that it doesn't go too crazy. Wow, that's quite wise. And like I said, all this is still quite experimental.
Yeah.
Although there is one way, I guess, that people can somewhat think about it, is that the opportunity cost of staking, right? Like basically, if I stake the Kusama and the crowd loans, how much opportunity cost of the staking rewards I'm foregoing, and therefore relate that to the valuation. And we don't have to go to the calculations now, but I guess there's some way. But even then, it's just one of the ways to calculate, right? And nobody knows what is the right amount that should be valued. Yeah.
Yes.
Great. So let's talk about other scenarios. Actually, I think so far everybody's really confident that among the first five, I think Acala or Karura will be one of the winners, right? But what if it doesn't happen? Let's say some crazy scenario and we don't get the Parachain slot. What happens, or what is the backup plan?
Well, there's still a possibility, right? And we are fighting on the pro. We are working very hard on the Parachain, on the Crowdloan campaign as if we were losing, and I think that's the mindset that we should all hold into as a project founders. There's still a possibility that some change well they might bid a huge crazy amount for one other slots. No one knows. At this stage, looking from the numbers, I think we are very confident that we are likely to win. But if we don't, that's all right because. The Crowdloan was set to run for the auction for like 5 weeks. So there's like 5 times that we can bid for the slots. It doesn't have to be like we hope that we can be the very first one, but if it fails, I'm pretty sure that we can be quite confident that we will be very first few one to get online. I don't think I think that's something that we can confidently say that. Yeah. So. Yeah, in cases in cases we didn't win the very first one, I think there's always for the crowd, they can also pick for additional slots.
And maybe to also open up like the imagination of different approaches. Right now, kind of everyone's bidding for the full 48 weeks, right? But actually, the parachain slots are kind of divided into different time periods, and especially
Yes.
on Polkadot as well. So you don't actually need to bid for the full year. Have you also kind of like considered, a combination of like different periods, maybe collaborating with different projects so that, you each take up different periods? How would that work? And yeah.
We did. Actually, this is the decision by the community. We reached out to the community. The Acala or the Karura has a very, how we say, a very helpful community. So we reached out to the community. We sent out a survey to ask them, hey, would you like to indicate how long would you like to support the Crowdloan for? And 1 year on Kusama is definitely the number we get, the most popular choice by the community. So this is essentially already like a governance by the community member to choose. This is 1 year. In Kusama, the longest period that you can bid for is 1 year. Obviously, you can bid for half a year or even like 6 weeks. The minimum slot duration is 6 weeks. But I think 1 year is a balance between like there's some sort of predictability and while still maintain that, hey, it's actually not too long. So I think that's why the community choose 1 year is probably the right amount for Karura.
I see. So it was not kind of like our decision. We listened to the community.
Yes.
And I guess similarly for then the next parachain slots, do we kind of like wait until after 1 year, then we see what happens and then we bid? Or, is there some consideration that maybe after 6 months we bid for another slot and then we
Yeah.
go for that, or for some reason and then move it over just to like time the market, or like when there's lower demand and so on?
Yeah, definitely. It's not about timing the market. It's actually like before the lease period ends, a project need to start to prepare for its next slot lease. So we're definitely running another auction on Karura once it's like getting close to the end of the lease period. But the one good thing about Karura is actually in our product roadmap, we are developing another product that we call pKSM or pDOT, which allow you to bid for slots within the Karura network. So essentially, you can have a staking derivative for parachain bidding. So I think once we are live, we are able to roll out these products, and once this product is in place, it actually give the Kusama holder or the DOT holder much more incentive to bid for a parachain auction, because once they finish the bidding, they actually get a derivative that they can use to trade, use to transfer. It's no longer locked for X amount of time.
Yeah, would you like to just talk a bit more about that? How would that work, and
Okay.
what are the
Yeah,
alternatives?
Yeah, think about the Karura network rolling out a new protocol, and this protocol can trustlessly take your KSM or take your dots, lock it in an account, lock it in a smart contract, and then place bid on behalf of your decision. It can be for its own, so you can deposit KSM and bid for Karura, or maybe you can also bid for other parachain. So, and the directive from those locked KSM would be what we call the pKSM, would be like a directive for the, it's similar to the staking derivative. This would be the parachain bonding derivative. And once the parachain is up and running, you can start to trade your derivative. There's no like freezing liquidity of those locked KSM. So this is a product that we have in mind about a years ago. We have to be, and also this is a chicken and egg problem, right? So we have to be go live on Parachain first before we can roll out this trustless way of like Parachain bond derivative.
So basically, if enough people support Acala and Acala gets the one of the slots, then
Yeah.
for future auctions, you don't even need to kind of like lock it up. You can actually get liquidity on the
Yes.
KSM and dots that you lock in. There's one more reason to support the Crowdloan of
Yes,
Acala. Yeah.
and the most I think the most important point to take is that it's trustless. So we are the believer of like a truly trustless system or truly decentralized with no single point of control. So when we roll out pDOT or it's just like well, when we roll out the liquid dots, ultimately the protocol itself is trustless, and the derivative you get is as good as the original one because like they are the rule is being forced governed by the blockchain code itself, not a single authority or something like that.
Yeah, that is definitely so much the values of Web3 and DeFi, right? Although that's actually something that is a bit of a debate, right, with retail users. Because, for example, with CeDeFi, that the experience is so easy. They have their dots on exchange. They can very easily just participate on a crowd loan there, and they get the derivative product as well. Or later on with like Kusama, like they can do that as well. And with both dot staking as well as crowd loan. So, how do you think about, I guess, somewhat competing against these like CeDeFi products?
Well, I don't actually see it's going to be like one type of product to fit them all, right? There's so many different people, there's so many different requirements. So for CeFi products or what I call a crypto service, crypto finance service providers, they can tap into a decentralized backend and provide a much more user-friendly for those less geeky people. I think that's a great push. It's a good idea. We're definitely into that. And as long as there's option for the participant to also join in a truly trustless way, I think it's not going to be like one product type to fit them all. So we're actually in the Crowdloan of the Acala or the Karura auction. We actually work with a number of reputable exchanges, for example, Kraken, and they are officially supporting our Crowdloan. We think it's even better. Like there's so many different ways to participate. Some users they prefer a trusted custodian, for example, Kraken, so they don't need to actually take care of their own private key. They can just go like the conventional way. That's great, one way to participate. Some user they will say that okay, I would maybe want to manage my own key. I would like to participate in a fully decentralized way, still also open. So I think as long as there's option to choose, it is actually both kind of product is actually very good to pushing the wider crypto idea to the more populations.
It's kind of like creating more alternatives so that people who can decide whether they want to just do it themselves, go through an
Yes.
intermediary, go through an exchange. Yeah, I see. So I guess then for the then that kind of goes towards what kind of community or users then we want to attract, right? Because as you say, we are allowing anyone to participate, but there's a certain kind of unspoken or intangible culture and values that attract people to Acala and Karura, depending on the product design, yourself, how you communicate, and like how we engage with the community, what kind of products we build, like you said, in a more trustless way, but still allowing for centralized exchange. So, how would you describe the values of the community that people rally around?
Oh, I think the value of the project, or at least the value that we currently hold with the team members, is also shared across the communities. That we would like to create a truly decentralized product to offer more value and more use cases for any crypto users or token holders or anyone to offer a much better alternative to the existing financial infrastructure that everyone get used to. And by saying that, we mean to bring more value through direct participation. For example, you can the if you participate in the decentralized money market, you are ought to get better return than you participate through some sort of intermediary. So I think the value that we hold within the team or within community is that first, it has to be truly decentralized, and that's the goal we are working towards. Second, it needs to be like community owned, so every one of us is actually actively building the product together. And finally, it needs to be censorship resistant, so everyone is treated equally. There's no favorable treatment given to different participants. So those is the value that we hold. And I think one thing we can share is that how you value a project if a project is really decentralized. One thing you can use to value that is that if the founding team goes away, does the project still function, still bring value to its token holder, to its user? And if that's the case, it's very likely this is a truly decentralized setup. And we are working very hard towards that to achieve the goal that everyone will be better off, and the project or the program itself become an infinite machine that can run, operate on its own.
That's great. Yeah, it really embodies the values, and like you said, even though we try to decentralization and trustless and immutability, it's not that we're saying that this is the only way or this is the best way, and we allow kind of like, sure, there are different stages along that spectrum, and you can go through custodian and so on, but you pay the price of maybe more fees, less control. And while promoting like this way, if you want to take control, right? And so it's less of kind of like punishing the behavior that's not aligned, but rewarding and attracting people to the archetypes that you want to incentivize with your distribution and user experience.
Yes.
Yeah. Indeed, I think that's the spirit of Web3 that is really shining through, right? Where like, yesterday we were just recording another podcast and we were talking about how it's not about building moats so that people cannot leave, or that once they choose this one, they are locked out of other paths. It's more like giving them an option that's so attractive and helping them understand that value proposition of being in control, being part of the owners of the network, so that when they try it out, they're like, wow, I don't want to go back to the other way, right?
Yes, definitely. And I think it's especially important in crypto that the moat is actually the project, the culture, the community, the consensus itself. You can see some projects trying to build up moats. They might some projects they might think liquidity is the moat. Well, in the crypto, I don't think that's the case, because liquidity move at the speed of light, capital move at the speed of light. So to build a so-called moat is actually do not stop at where you are. Keep rolling out new feature, keep improving what we are building, and to bring more value, to grow the community together, and to reach to more population in the world that's not yet on crypto. It's actually like in a very early stage, right? So it's a growing pipe. The mode is to do not stop there. Keep rolling out new stuff.
Yeah. Wow, that is the grand vision. And well, I guess on that note, would you like to just share a bit more about then the longer term, grander vision of Acala, right? Because I know while we started off in the Polkadot Kusama, we're known as a Polkadot Kusama kind of project. Actually, it doesn't have to be limited to this.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously you can see Acala itself has those core foundational primitive built in. Obviously, the short-term priority for us is actually to grow those products, to make sure they bring value, that there's more user, there's more transaction, there's more holder in the parachain that we are building. The longer-term product is that we shouldn't stop at what we built, right? Acala itself is a set of financial primitives that we created. There's a lot more exciting product we can start to explore. Actually, the whole space in the crypto, there's a lot more possibility once you are given the power to create a specialized network. You can start to explore. For example, I'm staking my dots. Can I get my staking reward in other currency? Well, now you can with Acala. You can program something like that, say that, hey, I'm staking X amount of dot, I would like to get X amount of Bitcoin rewards in a trustless way. So those are the new possibility that we can enable on Acala. So I think the longer vision is that the community or the crypto space is growing. We need to keep the mindset that the team should be also growing, should be keep innovating, and to attract more people into this crypto space, whether they are experienced crypto user or the first-time crypto users. Try to bring more people into this space because ultimately, I personally believe that the whole financial sector, at least on the bare minimum, gonna be written on blockchain. And it's going to offer much better outcome for everyone that's transacting if you think blockchain will be the backbone of the financial system.
I think there's a general social consensus that we are so early still, even just
Yeah.
compared to the whole banking industry, the entire financial industry, and beyond, like other things that can be then tokenized and financialized, the intangible value becoming tangible or tokenized on chain. So the potential is insane in terms of like world changing. Of course, that also means that there's so much like as we expand this, the surface area of innovation keeps increasing, right? And
Yes.
it's already kind of impossible to follow. Like even on Ethereum itself, is already so much, and then on Polkadot itself, there's so much, and the whole of DeFi is so much. So what are you kind of paying attention to, or what is the most exciting to you in like the short term and like the longest term?
Well, in the short term, definitely we need to, as I said, we need to focus on what we built, right? So I've been building the Acala project for over 2 years, slightly over 2 years, and it's finally at a stage that we can make it go live. So the short-term focus for us definitely would be like first to serve the Polkadot community, to serve the Kusama community, to offer the Polkadot and the Kusama holder more utility out of their tokens. So once Karura is launched, the Kusama token that you currently hold can have additional utility. You can use it as collateral, you can provide liquidity in the DEX, you can create liquid KSM. So those is the short-term goal, to make sure that we have a thriving community that's actually transacting on the protocol. Definitely on the long term, we need to keep our eye open, right? So we like to make sure that Polkadot is not only serving the Polkadot community, we are thinking about a multi-chain future, right? So how can we connect it? How can we bring value to the wider crypto community? We know Polkadot itself, or we know the Parachain itself is very capable of delivering high performance and very low cost transactions. How can we bring those to the wider crypto community? And ultimately, the long-term vision will be, hey, can we bring more non-crypto users onto blockchain, and let them enjoy what we currently are enjoying as like the small niche crypto community. I'm pretty sure everyone listening to this program has been enjoying, for example, like very high interest rate saving on Compound, on the decentralized lending protocol. And when I talk about this idea to like the non-crypto wider population, people that doesn't believe me. They think it's too good to be true. After I explain the idea of like, hey, you actually it's actually viable, actually more safe to transact this way. Some people get it and they start to ask me the question, then if this is so good, why not everyone is on it? I said, yeah, right. Let's make sure everyone get on it. So that would be the
Yeah.
ultimate vision.
Yes, definitely. Going mainstream. I do see a kind of like two main narratives. Like either people say go institutional or go mainstream. And like among the more crypto Web3 native crowd, the idea is actually to go more retail focused, right? And
Yes, definitely.
maybe somehow fully disintermediate many of the intermediaries or most of them. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, we're coming to the last few minutes. So shall we come back to just the more like very practical steps? Now we're so excited with all these crowd loans. Where can we go and participate? Where would you like to direct people towards? Is it exchanges? Is it the different crowd loan modules? Is it your own native websites? How do you do it?
Yeah, actually, the way to participate in the Crowdloan, there's actually like three ways that you can participate. One is directly by going to the Acala website, and we have created a special page for you to contribute in a trustless way by using the Polkadot.js extension. So as long as you have Kusama within your Polkadot.js wallet, you can contribute in a trustless way that way. And there's also referral code that you can find somewhere that can give you more rewards by contributing that way. If you are exchange user, we've been working with a number of exchanges, so Kraken being one, OKEX, Huobi might roll out their solution at some stage as well. So you can you can find the official supported exchange in the Acala website as well and participate through an exchange. And also there's another way you can expect you can contribute to the Crowdloan using a mobile wallet. Currently, there's 3 officially supported mobile wallets: Polka Wallet, Fearless Wallet, and Mass Wallet. Those is like Also a non-custodian solution. You will be just contributing through the wallet that you hold directly.
Awesome, awesome. We'll make sure to drop all the links in there. And just to repeat again and be very clear, this is not a token sale. There is no investment. All you're doing is signaling your support and commitment. It's kind of like a voting
Yeah.
for Karura to win a parachain slot.
Yeah, think about this way. This is like a committed way of liquidity mining. So you, at no chance, you will be giving out your token. If you participate in a through Polkadot.js, the token, the Kusama token, actually never leave your custody.
Yep. Yep. You will definitely get back whatever that you stake by the end of the
Yes.
period. Yeah, that
Yes.
is the guarantee. And maybe even earlier if you have a liquidity derivative somehow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and very lastly, shall we also just share some of the channels where people can follow either yourself or Karura and Acala?
Yeah, definitely. So we are very active on Twitter. So there's the Karura Twitter handle. There's also the Acala Twitter window. You can also follow me on Twitter. I have a Twitter account. There's also a link tree link that we can drop in the text that you can click. There's so many different channels to get in touch with the Acala community. Discord, Telegram, join the mailing list. And it's a big family. We are growing as we speak. I think last month we reached 250,000 community members. Hopefully we'll reach to 500,000 soon. And yeah, join the community, join the movement, and build this product together.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Ruitao. It's such a pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, indeed. And this has been the Web3 Native Podcast by Longish Ventures. And thank you so much. Hope to see you again next time.